start recording real quick.
Okay.
Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us on our first pre-hack event. We're going to talk about the Fashion Hackathon very shortly, talk about TinyCircuits, and then I'll hand it over to Rena, who is the lovely rep from TinyCircuits, the goddess of wearables over there, who will give us a small presentation. So the Fashion Tech Hackathon, if you know or you don't know, is an event that happens every year. This year we're going virtual. We have support from the Burton D. Morgan Foundation. We have support from Design Innovation. And TinyCircuits has also been a supporter pretty much since the beginning. I don't remember when we started, what iteration this is. We started, I believe, in 2013. And they've been around since then, supporting us in various capacities. So we do have a website currently with some information. The registration for the hackathon will be going live in the next couple of weeks. We're going to have some other pre-hack events between now and then. Mostly in January, there'll be a stronger amount of events leading up to the hackathon, including a team formation event. Since we are going virtual, we're going to reach out to our extended networks around the world. So we're hoping that the capacity to host a virtual event will have a worldwide reach. So we'll see how that goes. It's exciting.
Awesome.
Yeah. So TinyCircuits is an awesome company that's located here in Akron, and they do all sorts of things. You can see from what's showing here. Here's Tiny Lily, perfect timing. This is one of their platforms that Rena will be talking about. They have super cool microcontrollers and different sensors and items that snap in together. Another one, Wirelings. Tiny Screen is fabulous and fun to work with. And I'm not going to talk too much about them, but they have been around for years. Ken Burns is awesome. Everyone that works over there is such a good soul. They're really energetic and they love what they do, and it shows in their product. So I'm going to hand it off to Rena and go ahead and share your screen.
Yes, awesome. Well, hello, I'm Rena. I work at TinyCircuits. Let me just get my presentation up. I have a cute slideshow for everyone. It's going to be great. So today I'm going to talk about small and wearable electronics from TinyCircuits. I went in 2017, 2018. I had a fabulous time. If you're not sure if you want to go yet, I say just go participate. It's really fun. You'll meet cool people. This is actually a funny little picture I found on a Kent website somewhere. Yeah, so it's great. It's where I discovered TinyCircuits actually, and how I ended up working here. I remember talking how their tutorials were terrible. So when I was first hired, that was what I ended up fixing. And I do a lot of the thing. So I don't know, I talk to a lot of people and I get involved with their projects, and it's really cool. So what we're going to talk about today, the fun stuff. I'm going to overview a little bit of electronic jargon, just so we're on the same page. And then we're going to talk about Tiny Lilies of Global Electronics. They're really cool. You can see just some little holes here. You can just sew them directly into your clothing projects just using conductive thread. And then we're going to talk about Wirelings, which are relatively new. We put these out into the world about almost exactly a year ago. But with these, you don't have to sew or anything. We just easy to use for just building something quick, which works out great for a hackathon. So after I talk about both of these sort of categories, I'll go over some projects so you can see what it looks like in real life. So on to some electronic jargon. So breadboarding is a temporary way to put circuits or components together. I'm not sure the point, but you can see that it becomes it can get confusing. Soldering is just kind of small welding. So it's taking components like this and putting them into a more permanent circuit. So luckily, if you're afraid of soldering and breadboarding, if it looks too crazy, like you don't have to do that with our products. Our main goal is to make it easy to work with, hopefully. So all of our Tiny Lily products are sewable. You can solder them if you really wanted to, but they work really well just with sewing. And then with all of our wirelings, you can see like how the cable action works here into your main processor board, and you can get going. So for Tiny Lilies, these are dime size. Hopefully you can see the size comparison here. You can also wash these. You just can't wash the battery, of course. Like no batteries should be washed ever, but you can actually, so it makes them sewable, of course, and there are a lot of different components. There's a bunch of lights, there's a button, a motor controller, and a fun accelerometer sensor. So we'll go a little bit more in depth with those. But so a processor, if you don't know what it is, it's just the brain of your projects. It's kind of what controls all of the other components. And then you would need a programmer to give directions to this brain, this process. Some LEDs. These are pretty simple. They just turn on and off, or you can, we have 2 different sizes, and you can get them in red, green, or amber, which is like a yellow-orange. And then we have our RGB LEDs, which are personally my favorite if you're gonna add some lights to your project. You can make them any color you want, since they have RGB, or red, green, and blue colors, LEDs within it. You can create any color you want, and you can create cool stuff like rainbow light displays, which are fun. Boring products we have are our battery adapter. So you use this if you want to take your project wireless, you want to take it away, if you want to wear it, you want to have a battery adapter. And then we have our battery that you can keep and rewiring the same project you make by charging a battery. Bread. So this is made of steel fibers, and that's what makes it usable as a conductor. It's made of steel. It kind of has this like it's kind of like a dull stainless steel sponge, if you're familiar with that. So I know that's all a lot of different things. So I will say like the best way to get started with Tiny Lily is to get a kit that has like a bunch of all the stuff that you might be interested in. So we have like our starter kit, which has like everything I just talked about and like multiples. So we have like a little sewing kit. It comes with the cable. Like that's all you need to get started. And then our basic kit, which is something you can use just at your desk if you wanted to just tinker around and play with stuff. There are 3 things in the Tiny Lily line that don't have in these kits. Motor controller can be used for, say, you want to spin a bow tie around. So you would use this motor controller and a motor, and you'd put that in your bow tie, and it would just spin around for you. Something cool you can do with a button switch is maybe you don't want this bow tie to spin around forever. So you would use a button switch so you can click this button to control when it turns on and off. And then with the accelerometer, this is a sensor that can detect acceleration. So it can tell when you're moving around. And you can do some really cool stuff with that. You'll see in the projects I'm about to get into. You can control using the accelerometer, like turning on LEDs in an outfit by walking. So we'll talk about some projects. So this is something I made for July 4th. If you're a fashion student and you see my crazy stitches, don't come after me. I'm an engineer, so I'm not very good at stitching, but this is kind of like what the badness ends up looking like. So this was just a simple project with 3 RGB LEDs, and they would just fade from red to white to blue, very patriotic. And then this is just a little pocket I made to hold my battery inside my t-shirt. And I did end up expanding on this and adding an accelerometer so that when I move, the lights would come on, because I was getting sort of annoyed with like just lights constantly flashing. So it was nice to be able to control like costume for Halloween last year. I was Luna Lovegood from Harry Potter. So these are her spec project. I didn't actually sew using conductive thread. I soldered these. That's only because I couldn't sew into plastic glasses, but you can see how that can be sort of nice looking and useful. And then this is the battery adapter I was talking about, and of course a battery that was tucked in pretty nicely. These just would stay from red to blue on each side. And then this is the last one and probably the silliest. So this is using the motor controller and it with a button. So it's just a little hat. It has a little button right here you can press to turn on a motor and to make it spin. And then here's my stitches, which are excellent, of course. And I ended up using some hot glue. So you definitely use a lot of different things making wearable projects, but they always turn out sort of fun. So next we'll move on to Wirelings. So this is a larger line, so I'll be talking about quite a few boards, but because we have like lights, screens, sensors, buttons, audio, we even have like a camera. So there's a lot in here. Try not to get overwhelmed. It's okay. So the way these work, they are dime size like the Tiny Lily, but they are just square instead of round. So they're a little bit smaller, which can be nice for hiding in clothing projects. And then they come with, or you can get cables to plug them in of any different size that we have here so that you can best suit it to your application. So I know this looks crazy, don't worry. We have our screens, they come in 3 different sizes. So we have our 0.42 screen, 42 inches, and it's like about the size of a fingernail, which is insane. So it might be hard to read, but you can definitely get text on there and see a lot. We have our 0.69 inch, which is longer, but still like pretty small. This one is a bit brighter, you might notice, than the other 2 screens, if that's something that's important to you. And then we have our largest wiring screen, which is about 1 inch big, I suppose. So that's nice for displaying a lot of information. If, say, you wanted to know about like the weather, like you have a weather sensor in your or in your shirt, so you can like see like what active weather is around you, this would be a nice display to show that information. Just like the Tiny Lilies, we have RGB LED Wirelings. But something fun about these is that they have 2 connectors on the back. So if you wanted to have multiple LEDs in a sequence, you could just stack them or plug them in together and just make the longest strip you want. For the audio category, we have a buzzer and a speaker, which both work really similarly. If you're familiar with like the early 2000s phone ringtones, like really like, I don't know, beepy or like pretty much any song or anything, like using that sort of sound with either the buzzer or the speaker. The buzzer is nice. It does all of these things. And then the speaker just gives you a bit more power. It's a bit louder, maybe a bit more annoying if you're working in an office of, say, a couple engineers that don't want to hear your silly little songs. And then we have a microphone. This would be something good to use like if you wanted to detect like a clap or a yell. That's what you would use it for. It can't exactly like understand a conversation like you would normally think from a microphone, but it can detect loud sounds. For communication, say you wanted to control a part of your costume using a remote. You could do that using an IR receiver, which is sort of what would be in your television, and you can send IR signals to it to change the channel, change the volume. That is sort of what the IR receiver is. It's the TV side of that communication. And then an IR emitter is this little LED that'll send out signals. So it's what you would have in your TV remote. And something cool about this is you can use a receiver, the old remote you have lying around your head, and use it with the IR. And then we have, of course, like a bunch of different input type wirelings. So we have small button, a large button. This dude is pretty tall. And then we have a touch slider. So this is cool for like a user experience type thing. You have like six different pads that you can use for different behaviors. But I'll show you in a project in a second, but you can also use this as a slider. So you can slide your finger on it and say, you know, that one's really cool. Very small, of course. So the switch is just like a button. It's just a joystick. You can use it in 4 different directions. So it's sort of like having 4 different buttons. And our rotary dial switch, you can have 10 different modes. So this is cool if you have a lot of different options you want to work into your project. This was used in a project I'll show you later, where my intern made a project where you could have 10 different colors and you could switch between those for his little light project. And then, of course, if you want to get super dramatic with what you make, you can use our big red button. I don't have a title for this, but you can tell what it is from what it looks like. It's a big red button. It's fun. And then sort of our last things, I don't have as many pictures because these all look pretty similar. But we have our ND, and then we have a sensor that has all of those things in one, plus detecting volatile organic compounds. So these VOCs are basically what makes up your air quality. So you could have an air quality tester like in your shirt wherever you go, just to know like what your air quality is when you walk outside. Maybe you walk downtown in Kent where there's a lot of cars, like understanding that difference and like in the air quality you breathe. We have a light sensor. This is normally used in plant projects, like in combination with a soil moisture sensor, but it doesn't have to be. You can use it to know like how much light you get throughout a day. Like, am I getting enough UV rays to be happy in the winter, or do I need to get a light lamp at home to feel happier? But you can also use it to detect water. I have a project, I'll show that later than I can describe now. And then we have our heat camera, which is really cool. You can use it to detect, most popularly, it's used to see if you are computer too hard with computer geeks. You use it to see, like, is my computer too hot? Is it gonna blow up right now? Have I pushed it too far? But if you're really bougie like me, you can use it to see if your tea is ready to drink, like, or is it still too hot? And that's what this little GIF shows. For movement sensing, if you are familiar with virtual reality games, these are the sensors that make those games possible. So the accelerometer sensor, like we discussed before, can detect acceleration. It can detect that in the X, Y, and Z axis, so you can get a good range of motion. And then we have the 9-axis, which is an angular rate sensor. So you can make, with a magnetometer, a compass, and like in combination with the an angular rate for virtual reality games, so that you can like really understand the complex movements you're making. So those are really cool and powerful if you're really interested in tracking movement. And then some other sensors or things that didn't quite fit into any other category. We have a couple Hall sensors. So these detect magnets. So if you have a bunch of fridge magnets that you're not attached to, you can rip those up and use those with Hall sensors. Yeah, that's what those are. There are also, we have color sensors. So you can use these sort of as a real life teardropper tool, I believe it's called, a dropper tool. So you can see like what the color, like the RGB color codes of things in real life are. If you like find a really cool paint in some random building, you could use a color sensor to know like exactly what that RGB code is. And then we have a pulse sensor. So this can measure your BPM. It can be used in health applications, so you can see your own like cardiogram output, stuff like that. So this is really cool for if you're interested in making a health project and keeping track of your own personal health. And then we have a distance sensor. I think this one is excellent right now in the time we live in. You can use this on your clothing to tell how far apart things are, like people, to make sure they're 6 feet away from you during COVID, you know, something fun like that. And then we have a vibrating motor. This is one that is really nice for user experience. So this can do around 120 different vibrating effects. And you can use that to quietly tell yourself things like, get away from me, and subtly get away from them, you know. So let's see some projects. Oh, might be. We have wiring processors, of course. So, of course, to power all these wirelings, you need a brain or a processor. So some of the cool ones are the Robot Zero. You can use this with a bunch of motors, servo motors, stepper motors. And what's fun about these is you can stack a bunch of these wireling adapter boards. So you don't have to be limited by like one board of 4 wirelings. You can have up to 32. You can stack multiple wireling adapters on top of each other to have as many wirelings as your heart desires. Something that's like our smallest processor and the one that is my personal favorite for things if I just want to do small wireling projects is the Wirelings Zero. So it's your processor, your battery charger, your battery adapter, all in one, and it has 4 wireling outputs. You can't stack more to get up to the 32 like you can with these that have the little tan connector, but it is great if you only want to use a couple of wirelings. So with the wireling adapter, we also have our regular processor boards, like our TinyScreen Plus on each side that can be used for whatever you need. But the screen itself is pretty powerful. We have a Tiny TV product. I have it here with me. I'll show you sort of what this can do in real life. And then we have our Tiny Zero. It's sort of like our basic all-in-one processor. And you can use that. So now we'll talk about projects. So this first one is a fitness tracker. So it uses the TinyScreen Plus to show all of this data, a pulse wireling, a vibrating motor wireling, an accelerometer, and a microphone, and your health better. Like how many, like this is used as a step counter in the project to know how many steps you're making throughout the day, keeping track of like what your resting heart rate is at different points, alerting you about different things using the vibrating motor. And then what's really cool in this project is there's a microphone that's used to see if you're, and how that might affect your overall fitness. So that one's cool. We also have an air quality tracker. So using that volatile organic compound wiring, you can kind of see like walking to TinyCircuits. So this is like what our engineering office looks like. And then when you get to the manufacturing side, the air quality is of course a bit worse, but it's good to know those things just so you know for your own personal health. So let's see, what else do we have? We have a TinyWeather Station. So this is where that silly little magnet sensor can come into play. You can use it as an anemometer. So this is a magnet here. And an anemometer, if I'm saying that correctly, is a wind sensor. So the Hall sensor here can see how often this magnet is passing by it to detect or to calculate. But you can use this as like a weather station type thing, like knowing how much sun there is in a day, displaying that information, fun stuff like that. So here is that RGB LED controller that fun project I kept talking about. This uses the touch slider wiring. You can see it in this little animation here. So this is used to turn the brightness up. The joystick controls what direction the LEDs move in. The rotary will change. I didn't mention before, but you can use any component as a wireling. I know soldering isn't exciting exactly for most people, but if you did want to solder and you did want to use something sort of as a wireling, like an RGB LED strip, you could do that. You could solder those in. This is what it looks like. But yeah, that is an option. So choose. And then this is a project I did around the beginning of COVID when I was stuck at home in quarantine. So this is using a Wirelings Zero problem, but it would just tell me how long I had been washing my hands or how long the faucet had been on using the soil moisture sensor. So I didn't use it for a plant, which is interesting at least. You can see like you can use it for multiple different things. And then of course I had a little buzzer that would like play a little fun song, be like, hooray, you're done washing your hands, don't get COVID. So this is something showing our distance sensor wiring. So as the hand moves closer to this little candy dispenser, it'll open. This is like a cool Halloween project, but again, it's just showing you like this is a no-touch sensor where you can understand your environment more around you. We have a coupon code for you guys, so you can get any of our hardware for 20% off. My email, if you have like any extended questions or you want to know more about what hardware works best for a project, you can contact me directly or use the email form on our website. I'm always happy to talk. Like, please talk to me. I love human interaction. Any way I can get it.